So my favorite Albert Einstein quote is, "A mind exposed to a new idea never returns to its original size." So like the Grinch's heart, I hope by the time we're done today, you're 3 times larger than when you walked in the door. So who would have thought we'd be sitting here and talking about global poverty? It wasn't my first choice. It wasn't something that I thought we'd be doing. Can we get the slides up on the screen? Maybe? And so having grown up, there we go, and change one. Having grown up around the world, I went to grade school in Spain, high school in England. My wife grew up in Taiwan, Singapore, and Korea. So we've been around poverty. After 20 years in the Marine Corps, I've seen poverty. I've worked with them. I've been out in the field and protected them. But I never thought I'd be standing up here trying to do something about it. It seems kind of audacious. And yet, you're here trying to do the same thing. When God put this task on my heart, I rebelled. I said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And why can't I do, this is not working very well, guys. There we go. Why can't I do something like the animal shelter or build houses? I think God kind of said that's the whole point, isn't it? 50 years ago, China had a lower GDP than Africa. What changed? Organization, access to finance, and education. What do the people out there in the world today not have? It's those 3 things. And yet, when I argued with God about this, and I never win these arguments, I said, I don't think this is a good idea for me because you saw them today. There's the IMF, there's an entire alphabet soup of people out there doing things about this already. They've got it solved. And then I went and looked at the data. And what the data tells you, I'm going to give you a reading list also, and we're going to have some investment advice from Warren Buffett, and then we'll close this thing up. So your first reading list is that Poverty and Peace, Muhammad Yunus, one of our good friends, said that poverty is the breeding ground for violence. And being a retired Marine and being out in the field with these folks, when they open a madrasa for free and feed your kid if he goes there, it's a breeding ground for violence. Growing middle class prosperity shuts that all off. And that's what we're trying to do. So what about foreign aid with all these alphabet soups? Well, over the last 20, 30 years, we put out there more than $5 trillion in foreign aid. And what's it got us? This is a hard chart to find, and I'll show you the first book in just a second, Debt Aid. I'd encourage you to get it, write it down, and go read it. It's an incredible book. I'm going to give you 3 books to read. If you read these 3 books, you'll know more about poverty and what to do about it than 99.9% of the people on the planet. This is the first one. A chart from there shows you what happens when you give away money. The red line is giving. The blue line is GDP and education. The more money you give kleptocracy governments, the less they pay attention to their population, the more they pander to the donors, and the worse off the people are. So seeing that foreign aid wasn't the solution, I couldn't get out of God's request by appealing to foreign aid. I thought, gee whiz, what if we gave them things, right? I've got lots of extra stuff. You've got lots of extra stuff. Poor people don't have things, so let's give them stuff. And I met a guy named Bob Lipton, and he told me that, and you know this with your kids, we all inherently know this. If you give them something once, people appreciate it. If you give it to them twice, they start anticipating, you're going to do this again. If you give it to them 3 times, you've now, remember Pavlovian hierarchy of needs, you start to train them to expect this. When you hit 4, it becomes an entitlement. I deserve the things you are giving me. And Bob Lupton will tell you about going to Nicaragua, and finally the pastor of the church said, you need to leave and not come back because you're turning my people into beggars. They're simply waiting for you to come back to give them more stuff, and you're creating dependency. And so I realized, sadly, that giving stuff away isn't the way. Even though my mother-in-law tells a story about my wonderful wife back there, who's the middle child. They were living in Taiwan back in the 60s, and they decided to do a toy drive for the villages around. And she told her kids, could you please, put some toys together in a bag? And she went back in the room. My wonderful wife had an entire large bag full of toys. And of course, she thought, what a wonderful daughter I've raised, a little tear to her eye, sent her off to go play, and she looked in the bag, and it was all her brother's toys. But get this book and read it, Toxic Charity. It'll change the way you think about giving stuff away to people and what it really does to their hearts and their hopes and their wills. So if giving stuff away doesn't work, and relying on the government agencies doesn't work, I thought to myself, what does? What has raised more people out of poverty than anything on the planet? And it's free enterprise. Free enterprise and capitalism has raised this country from a wave of poor immigrants to the most prosperous one in the world, and has brought more people out of poverty than anything else. Why do you think China embraced free enterprise? It works. What do the people that we're trying to reach not have that same thing? Your third book, The Victory of Reason by Rodney Stark. Write that down and read it. You read these 3 books, you'll be able to hold a conversation with anybody and show them why current thinking about what to do about poverty is wrong and how what OI is doing is right. And that got me thinking, maybe we're thinking about this wrong. Maybe we shouldn't be handing out stuff. Maybe we should be helping people. Now, you don't see these people's names on the same piece of paper generally at the same time. So the president of the World Bank said the poor are not something to eradicate. The poor are an asset that are underutilized. And equally important, I think, for many people, is that Bono, world-known economist, said that capitalism is better than handouts. So if both of these guys can agree on that, why can't we act on it? And if you think about poverty in a way that works here with the slides, there we go, is that the poor are not the problem. The poor are not a thing to be solved. The poor are not a thing to be eradicated. The poor are not the problem. The poor, there we go. I want you to just click them back there when I tell you, okay? The poor are the solution. If you're a business person and you have assets, you need to put the assets to work. You don't let them sit idle and just keep cleaning them off and oiling them once in a while. You take them out and you put them to work. And our job is to do the same thing. And as that came to be clear to me, I searched the world for an organization that was doing this. Who out there in the world was already working on this? Who would go out and teach, train, transform, and be able to change people from what they were to what they could become? And what I found, obviously, is Opportunity International. You change the slide, please? There you go. 2 hardworking entrepreneurs, go one more, trying to make a living. And so what we have the opportunity to do is help people work their way out of poverty. And that's an important differentiation. You can't give them out of poverty. You can't give them enough money to stay out of poverty. You can help them work their way out of poverty so that they're successful and continually so and never need to come back to you and ask for more. And that's what Opportunity does. And it does it by training, go ahead, do the rest, by equipping with insurance, with transformation, with mentoring, with continuing engagement to help make them successful, by putting them in the group so that we have the same thing we have here, mentorship, and the capability of leaning on others when we have bad times and learning from their lessons and seeing their mistakes and profiting from that. And that's what OI does. Now, when OI works, we put them into trust groups. And trust groups pick their own name. So if a bunch of you got together and you created a name that demonstrated what you thought it might best represent your thoughts and beliefs, we win together. That's a pretty good one. Making our own way. But my favorite one is one that we have all told our children, including mine sitting up the front here, is that you can't make a living sitting down. These are the names they pick for themselves, and it represents their identity and their goals and their dreams and their aspirations and desires. Now, entrepreneurs, and this is one, change economies. America's built upon entrepreneurism. And entrepreneurism in these poor societies can change it from being a place of desperation to a middle-class organization that demands services from their government. They care for children, they support people, but what they also do is give back by employing others and becoming great leaders within their organization. And when a great leader within an organization, they demand services from the government, it changes the government's focus from outwards to inwards, and entire societies are transformed. Now, $50 is not much. And I'm sure if all of us reached in the pocket, you could pull out $50. So when we think about what we can do about global poverty, think about $50. And I'll show you what $50 from you to someone else can do. So 300 kids from 2 on a $50 loan started her down the road of entrepreneurship and employs a whole bunch of other folks. That's what we have the opportunity to do here. We should never think it takes big dollars to do things like that. It takes small dollars with the right organization at the right place at the right time. Go ahead and put all these bullets up if you would. To make an investment, though, like we heard this morning with David, you need to think about a couple of things. A convincing need to break the cycle of poverty, that's why we're here. Passionate and capable team with Vicki and the leadership we have here. I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps. I know what leadership's about. They've got the capability of pulling this off. We have clear goals, a comprehensive strategy, and a compelling return on investment. Now, it's not dollars coming back to you, and I'll talk about that in a second. But you have the ability of putting thousands of people to work. That's a rare and unusual opportunity. Go ahead and flip the slide. So let's take a little mental voyage for a minute. Think about someplace else. If it was not me up here, but this guy, and he had an investment opportunity for you, he said, I'll let you in on one of my deals. Go ahead and bring the points up. How much, think about this now, how much would you be willing to invest alongside Warren Buffett to get money back during your lifetime? Think about that number. It's probably not $100, it's probably not $1,000, it's probably a higher number, right? Well, that's what I want you to think about with OI. It's an investment. And we're actually a for-profit nonprofit. We're a nonprofit because of IRS rules. But every loan we give comes back with some profit. And then we cycle it over and over again. And you have the unique opportunity here by joining with OI to put people like that to work who want to get up early, stay up late, and work as hard as they do to earn their living as you have learned to earn the extra money that you're able to invest in this organization. 20 million by 2020, you've heard that. There's a couple of challenges here I want to highlight. The CEO Vision Fund, that's important because what that does is it allows us to deploy transformation people to the field alongside the loan officers as we move away from owning banks to having more leverage and being able to impact the people more. And so that's an important challenge to match up today. As you think about where you want to give, you can give in general or you can go against a couple of these opportunities. The second one is Operation Nicaragua. You heard something about that today. We're 80% there. We are almost finished. It's a 3-hour flight. I encourage you to invest in this and go down and look at it. They are taking farmers and villagers through an entire economic cycle they've never seen before. It's going to be a replicatable model that we can take to other countries around the planet and be able to not only help individuals out of poverty, but then entire communities into transformation. And that's what the Nicaragua project's about. It's an opportunity for us to do that. Go ahead to the next slide. On your tables, you're going to find some papers right in the middle, little leaflets. They look like this. You've got a purple one. If you grab one there, please. I hate forced participation, but in the afternoon before a beer, you don't want to make the crazy Marine with cowboy boots mad. So get one of these papers, pull it out if you will, please. And on there's a white paper talking about the matching gifts. There should be pens on the table. If not, when we're all done, there'll be an OI staffer at the door to help you collect this. They'll be able to help you fill it out if you need. They're always more than happy to add a 0 to your donation if you wish, or 2 if you want. We can do that too. But this is how you communicate with us. This is how you tell us you're interested, you want to participate. This is how you get involved with OI and get in deep. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing this. Go ahead and put the rest of these up. Ongoing monthly gifts are great because we can count on the cash flow month after month. But you become a governor. You've heard governors and people talk about governors. Governors is a great way to get involved at the next level. They have their own events that they only go to. And you help get to provide feedback into the organization and see inside a tent some of the things that we're doing. Or you can, by myself, be an ambassador. We get to go to Chicago, sit down with a management team, and help them strategize about how to grow this organization, how to make it more successful, and how to bring in our friends and other corporate entities to help fund it. And I ask you to consider all of these, and especially on this white paper, these immediate challenges in Nicaragua. We are 80% there. We're close to changing the lives of an entire village in Nicaragua. As you do this, I want you to think about 2 things. Flip the page, please. Thank you. Charity is great, but charity mostly feels good to us. You think about that. It feels really good when we give, but is that really the best gift? I would suggest the best gift is to start somebody in a business that they can make a living at long after we're gone. And the thing that drives me to do this every day to every night and travel to cities and give this presentation is this. Because I've worked hard, but God gave me my talent and my time and my capabilities and the opportunities in front of me to turn it into success. And I know that He expects a lot back for that. Thank you.